الحمد لله رب العالمين الصلاة والسلام على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. Dear brothers and sisters, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh, and welcome to Islamic Oasis Live. Dear brothers and sisters, as you all know, there is a lot that's going on in India. As always, India has been a very active place in political theater with everything else going on in the world. To be honest, wherever the Muslims are, the region where we are from, the Muslims in general, is a very hot area. It's, to be honest, it seems a place where many decisions to run the world happen. That is the Muslim world in general, whether it's Egypt, Gaza, Muslims in India, Central Asia, Sham, Middle East in general. So there's a lot going on. And of course, I'm sure all of you have heard of what's happening in India. The elections just took place. Of course, Modi returned to power. This is his, the third return to power. But it happened in a very interesting way. One, I think, that even caught the BJP with a surprise. Losing seats, over 100 some seats across India, even including in Ayodhya, which I think they thought would be the most favorite place for BJP, because that's where Babri Masjid was destroyed. That's where the mandir was built. I'm sure those who know the 92 politics of what happened with Babri Masjid know what we're discussing here. But to discuss the effect of these elections, both in India and specifically the Muslims of India, we have brought two brothers. We have Abu Muhammad and Abu Abdullah, both from India, from north of India, from south of India. Inshallah, we will be discussing the effects of these elections, both on the country, the politics of India in general, and specifically the Muslims. Brother Muhammad and Abu Abdullah, welcome to Islamic Oasis Live.
Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullah. Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullah. Let's start this, Sheikh. Let's start with Abu Abdullah. Abu Abdullah, you are from the north. Specifically UP. And so what's happening, Sheikh, especially with these elections? It seems that, I think Yogi is there, or Yodi, I think his name is. And this has been a very interesting elections for all of India, of course, but especially this area.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Rabbi shrah li sadri wa yassir li amri wahlul 'uqdatan min lisani yafqahu qawli. Assalamu alaikum, brothers. So this has been, as everyone knows, India went through a round of general elections, which happens every 5 years. The last one was in 2019, and we all know how it basically led Modi and his party BJP to swept power, basically. And this time it was expected to be the same. Everyone was expecting the rerun of the last results, and probably a better rerun. So almost every poll had predicted super majority for Modi and BJP, which is basically means 400 and above in a parliament which requires 272 for the majority, 50% of the majority. But the results were actually surprising for some, shocking for some, and unexpected for most of us. BJP, even though Modi won the elections in terms of forming the government, he will be the prime minister, the third time prime minister, the only one to have basically achieved this feat after Nehru, who is credited as the founding father of, in the sense, Indian parliamentary democracy. And that this is basically the first time, almost after 60 years, someone is going to continue as the prime minister for the third term. So this is a feat in itself. Obviously, the results, as we say, were unexpected in terms of the scale of victory that we had expected, or everyone had expected for Modi and BJP. And we can discuss this in detail. But BJP lost quite a few seats, close to 100, I believe.
127 or
And
so.
most
Yeah.
of the, yeah. And what was shocking was that a majority of the seats they lost was actually from the belt where they are, which is supposed to be the Hindu belt, the
Mm.
North India, especially Uttar Pradesh, where I come from. Uh, in Uttar Pradesh, they lost most of the seats, and a regional party actually gained, the Samajwadi Party. It is a socialist party, actually adheres to that ideology. Again, get the majority in the and send the maximum MPs to Lok Sabha. Uh, yeah, so there has lot been a lot of been a lot of commentary on this, and we are going to discuss this inshallah today. But but the reality is that Modi is continuing in power as the prime minister with a, lesser majority, but he has a majority. His coalition has a majority, uh, and a comfortable majority, I would say, and he will be forming the government with a coalition of small regional parties. Uh, Couple of them, one from Bihar, which is in the north, which is in the Hindi belt, and one from TDP, which is in south from Telangana, I believe. Right.
So, Sheikh,
So that is the reality.
Brother Muhammad, so now what's the future of BJP? And then, so what happens, Sheikh? He is. It's very surprising, even to us. I mean, if we're looking at this whole situation. We're saying, okay, Indian politics is taking a turn. Can one say that? Can foreign intervention be involved in this, Sheikh?
Assalamu alaikum. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Rabbi shrah li sadri wa yassir li amri wahlul 'uqdatam min lisani yafqahu qawli. Yes, as Brother Abdullah just went through the summary of the elections. Your question is pretty important. Foreign intervention, yes, I would definitely not rule it out, because if you say build up to the elections, there were a couple of Westerners, i.e., from big corporations like the Rockefeller, those camp, and some other people were attending were in India, and even Elon Musk was supposed to be there in India, but he didn't travel. And but the other people who were prominent capitalists who traveled to India, they hinted against Modi. So I would not completely say they had direct influence, but there might be a chance they might have hinted, or they were in the not in the mood to give majority to Modi as he had in the previous elections. Because if he gets majority as he had previously, then he might not adhere to the agenda that West sets for him, i.e., the America sets for him. So we never know. There could be definitely a hand into that. And plus, we all know that the liberals in America and the West are not that happy with Modi, I considering his human rights issues and stuff like that. There are pretty a lot of commentators and activists who look upon to the West, I who write for Washington Post, who does their reporting for Washington Post, and who frequently visits America, and they always raise the issues of minority and the human rights abuses they have to go through in India and stuff like that. So I think there might be something. There might be something, but I don't want to sound like a conspiracy theorist. But absolute majority coming to Modi's way would have been detrimental to the Western plans. So there can be a factor which might, i.e., they might be, i.e., like they might have helped Rahul Gandhi, i.e., Congress and stuff, how to maneuver the election strategy and all those sort of things. So we never know. That intellectual help would have definitely helped the opposition parties in India. We have seen there was a 38 party alliance before elections, i.e., the India alliance, which they call. So they all joined together to defeat Modi and BJP coming to power. They were successful at some level, because they were about successful in getting those 100 seats that which BJP has lost. And the big surprise, as Brother Abdullah mentioned, it came from the Hindi belt, where they almost lost big seats. So I think there is definitely some tussle going on between right wing forces and the and the liberal forces, in within the establishment and stuff like that. So I think it'll be good to see in the days to come how these things will shape up when they do the policy discussions, when it comes to countering China, when it comes to adhering to Western agenda. It has to be seen how Modi behaved in his second term and how is Modi behaving in his third term, or the statements that come from White House or from the establishment. So it's interesting time to see how much influence they have had on the Indian elections. So
So,
we
Sheikh,
cannot rule
are
that
you
out.
are you saying that look, from the way I'm looking at it, and this is for both of you, please, whoever wants to answer it, and go ahead. So, if you look at the politics in general in the area, in the international arena surrounding India, let's say you have Russia and China alliance, which is very strong and growing. Uh, and then, of course, you have BRICS also, which both Russia and China and the India, Indians are also part of that, Saudi Arabia and others. But Sheikh, is America worried uh, that India is not playing ball with the way America wants things done against China? I mean, obviously, with all the support the Americans have given India, growth when it comes to technological growth and all kinds of infrastructure growth, things like this. I mean, U.S. is not doing this just because. So there has to be a reason. So is this a kind of a nudge or something that if we want, we can change internal situation in India? There could also even be crisis in India. Anyone can take it.
If
Go ahead.
I can, yeah, if I can take this one. So that's a good point that you make. So let me step back just to describe the overall picture, right? If you are discussing the international arena, uh, it has been no secret that the liberal establishment in the U.S., especially the Biden administration in the U.S., has not been happy with the way Modi has been conducting the country and the direction Modi has been taking. Officially, I mean, there was a report and a lot of commentary has declared officially India as an illiberal democracy, right?
Mm.
So even though it's a democracy, but the results are not to the liking of the liberal establishment in the US. Uh, Even though Modi is the kind of uh, leader uh, the West would like to have in charge of India, uh, but uh, but his domestic politics, especially with the respect to politics around his policies around the Muslims, the minorities, was making the West quite uncomfortable, especially the liberals in the US who are in the power right now. Uh, the US especially sees India in the overall the larger game plan of building up India as a bulwark against China, right? Because we all know the US is trying to contain China in the Asia Pacific, and one of India is a major pillar of that containment strategy, right? So from the US perspective, they would like India to play ball as far as their policies on China is concerned. I'm not sure if they are playing the ball, but that is the US policy. Um, but as I said, Modi has become quite unpopular because of his direction that he was taking the country towards. And there was quite a lot of criticism on coming on the Western governments for supporting India despite the abysmal human rights records and growing violence against Muslims in India. So there has been a pressure, but as I said, India is firmly in the Western camp. Indian elites understand this, and they know why the West needs them, and they are making the best use of that opportunity while not completely falling into every policy decisions that has been taken by the West and playing ball with them.
Sheikh Abu Muhammad, I don't know if you want to add something to that. If not, I can go to the next question. Because go ahead.
Yeah, yeah. As you said in your earlier comments, and Abu Abdullah said in his comments, like um, Indian government or the BJP is not playing the ball as America wants. Maybe they do not want to have the whole thing in one go. So they are, they are consolidating their reach in India itself. BJP, i.e., Modi and BJP and RSS, which they already have gained compared to what they had in '92 till now. Plus, so like that's the reason they are not dealing head on with China at the moment. If that would have been the case, or maybe there is not enough push from America to go after China. We have seen in the last 5 to 8 years there have been China has been intruding into Indian territory, and there is no response from India. So maybe they have been held back, or maybe the right time has not come. I'm not 100% sure. Or if there is an opportunity, or maybe Kashmir might be that Achilles heel for India, that they don't want to unnecessarily bring the attention, because one of the areas is in control of China as well. One of the Kashmiri territories is in with China as well. So they don't want to unnecessarily lock horns with China. So I think, plus as he mentioned, the Americans are not happy, or the liberal lobby is not happy because of the human
So,
rights record.
hold
Rest
on.
of them,
Are you saying that the Chinese could use the Kashmir situation, uh, or at least intervene in Kashmir, to be able to create a problem
yes,
for India,
correct.
and
Why
then
not? They
hence
can, because
Pakistan can get involved? And is that a
because
possibility? Shah?
India is not
First of all,
India is
is
not
it
getting
possible
involved.
that does India want to go to war? Can it go to war for America?
They don't want to go to war with America. I don't think they will go to war for America. But because of the hype they have created for the sake of nationalism, they have to go. If the But they are no match, because even the analyst in the defense in Indian side, they also say we are no match to the Chinese force. So I think that is one of the reasons might be holding them back. They are not locking horns with China directly.
Hmm. Brother Abdullah, do you agree with this? I mean, can India actually bleed for America? Is this possible?
Uh, yeah, I mean, the way I would like to explain is that even though US has a foreign policy objective for that region, Asia Pacific region, as I said, which is to contain China. As far as the overall framework of that objective is concerned, India is on the US side, right? And
Mm.
because but India would not go to the extent that the US would want them to, right? Because uh, it's a powerful neighbor, and the Indian army and the Indian state is no match for the Chinese army and the Chinese state. In fact, just to show one data, China is the largest trade partner of India.
Mm.
You
Mm.
cannot
Oh,
you cannot
interesting.
jeopardize those relations just for the sake of playing ball with American demands, right? Uh, every business in India has a link to China. They import from phones to heavy tech, high tech, to machinery, to clothing, to fabric, everything. So India has its own interest in maintaining relationship with China, uh, but India also wants to be in the Western camp because India is ideologically aligned with the West,
Mm.
and it wants to be on the side of the US and the West, so that they are in their good books, and continue to gain benefit from the relationship. For example, India has a special treaty with the US for the export of nuclear technology, which
Mm.
US prohibits the export of to all other countries outside of the countries who have signed the NPT, Non-Proliferation Treaty. India has a special exemption uh, just to get the nuclear technology from the US. So, uh, so it's a mix. It's a mix scene out here. And as I said, one of the key weaknesses of India is in its military strength compared to China. There's no way India has already suffered one humiliating defeat in a one war that it has had with China in 1967, and that was the last time India fought any war with China. And but India has territorial disputes with China. For example, there's one entire state in India, Arunachal Pradesh, which
Mm.
China claims its own territory. So this has not never been resolved. As Abu Muhammad mentioned, even in the portion of Kashmir, which is Ladakh, that is also claimed
Mm.
by China. In fact, they have already occupied a portion of that territory during Modi's reign, actually, and there was not much Indian government could do about it except for just to deny it. because the reality is that India cannot stand up militarily or economically as an economic powerhouse against China.
Sheikh, so knowing all these realities here, I mean, America is also dependent on China in some ways, right? I mean, look, or even you can say China also depend on America as far as markets are concerned, and the amount of, I mean, it's the largest. I think America is the largest market for Chinese, and at the same time, I think you know, with what's happening with the currencies and things like this, Sheikh, what when we say U.S., what does U.S. want from India exactly? Yani containment. Uh, is it what does containment mean if India is to play ball with US? What would that mean in the region? Containment means what? I mean, economically, um, uh, keep. I mean, what can be done policy wise to make sure that China is contained?
I
Yeah,
mean,
so the containment policy basically, I mean, we all know the US is the current hegemon, the sole superpower, right? And as any superpower would aspire to, they would want to prevent the rise of any other superpower or a potential power. They see China as the potential power which can challenge America's hegemony at a regional level in the Asia Pacific region, right?
Mm,
So their
mm,
containment policy is basically to contain the rise of China, right, as much as possible, so that it doesn't in future come to a stage where it can start to directly threaten America's interest in the region and beyond. So, and this is like their pivot Asia policy, which was basically initiated under the regime of Obama, which Trump took further, and Biden is now taking to the next level. But remember, this shift in policy has happened after America burned its fingers because of the war on terror that they declared after 9/11 and 20 years of the disastrous policies, which basically culminated in their withdrawal from Afghanistan, right? So this is the new foreign policy focus of the American administration, because as I said, they see China as a potential superpower, and the whole containment policy to make sure that China doesn't rise to that capability to be able to challenge its economic and military might in the future.
Brother Muhammad, well, let's go back to a bit of a local politics or local Indian politics here. Yani, well, let's talk about Muslims. Muslims being the largest minority in India. What role do? First of all, I mean, do we know what role, let's say, the Indians played in the Muslims played in this elections? Was there any role? Was there any specific, um role that they could have played? Number one. Number two, uh, what what happens to Muslims in India, Sheikh?
it's a two-pronged question. What role did we as Muslims play, and what could happen? So that's two different questions. But I will go with first one. What role did Muslims play? Yes, if you have covered the elections, the news and the podcasts and everything during the elections, which was 6 to 8 weeks long, so we had like huge, you know, advertisement for to vote for a party which can defeat Modi. So that was not only called from political parties, i.e., the Muslim political parties, but from religious scholars, i.e., the big ones, the big names in India, which I think Jamiatul Mahin, Jamaat
Mm,
Islami, or even some Deoband scholars like Sajjad Nomani, they were all calling for, to strengthen those parties on the principles of lesser of two evils. So to keep Modi away, we have to unite. We have to vote. If you have not registered, please go register and vote. No matter what happens, at what cost. I mean, it was a pure. There was a scaremongering, actually, I would say, from the Muslim politicians or the scholars. They were telling that, if you don't vote, we will face extermination, i.e., the constitution will be changed if Modi comes to power, because they given a slogan. that this time we're going to hit 400 mark. So that slogan left, slipped a cat into the pigeons, and everyone went berserk. That we have to, no matter what, we have to save the constitution. So we have to save democracy. So the onus of saving democracy and constitution fell on the Muslim shoulders, which we, as you rightly said, we are the minority, like 20%. So 20% have taken the responsibility of safeguarding the democracy, safeguarding the constitution, safeguarding the secularism in India. And I think 90%, 95% Muslims have voted. I mean, out of the population that we had, they voted for. I mean, these people, they didn't say clear cut whom to vote, but they said, vote for candidates who can defeat the BJP. So either it can be, as Brother Abdullah mentioned, the Samajwadi Party in Uttar Pradesh, or maybe some other regional party, or maybe there were alliances in Maharashtra and other places where Congress was in alliance with some local parties and stuff. So people overwhelmingly voted, and even in some places, even they voted against their own Muslim candidates. I'll give you an example from south of India, the Maharashtra Aurangabad, where the MIM party, which is a Muslim party, whose sitting MP Imtiaz Jalil was defeated, and the Muslims voted for the India Alliance candidate. So this was the level of uh, attachment that
Participation in
Muslims
many ways.
had. Participation, yeah, this was the level of participation, or this was the level of enthusiasm the Muslims went into on board to safeguard this democracy. And so I think going ahead, what will happen, still people will hope on, that at least we voted, and we voted in majority, and at least now we can at least have some say, i.e. we have not given the Modi complete power, and they are in with a coalition with their in NDA coalition, so they won't have their absolute say in every matter. So little bit Muslims will have a better, little bit of more oxygen to breathe. So that's what the signals are coming from. But I very much feel that that's not the case. So I mean, Muslims are in a very still difficult and dire situation in India politically. Even after the elections, there'll be a lot of issues happening. There are a lot of bills that will be coming, which are against Muslims. So I think nothing much has changed, except yes, the majority has been cut down, but the agenda is still on.
So,
So Modi will give, BJP will give the alliance parties that they have given support to reach the majority, i.e. the TDP party from south, and the
when
Nitish
you say TDP, you're talking
Janata
about
Dal.
Telugu
So
Desam. Is this
Telugu Desam,
mhm,
yeah, Chandrababu Naidu. He won
Chandrababu
elections
Naidu?
in Andhra.
Mm,
Won elections in Andhra. He came back to power. So now he will become he's the chief minister of Andhra now. He defeated Jagan Mohan Reddy, who was from YSR Congress. So he'll be in power. So he has two simple demands. They are asking for the post of speaker, and they are asking for speaker special status to Telangana, to Andhra. Sorry. So that is the same case with the Janata Dal as well, with Nitish Kumar. So what they say is, look, because from the distribution of cabinet seats, we can see there is nothing much the alliances are getting. Majority BJP seats have gone the cabinet way. So the agenda is clear. They will continue with what they were doing, and they might give special status to. They will not give straight away tomorrow, but it might take maybe after 3 years. Once
mm.
they fulfill their agenda, they will keep them at bay. They'll keep them hanging until they fulfill their agenda, and then there might be a time that, okay, either they might, that those two parties might pull the support out from BJP. By that time, BJP will be ready for next general elections, snap elections, maybe after 2.5 years, 3 years, and that's how they will play the card. They'll see. Or the other thing is, they might try to break the people from other parties, like Congress or other people, to bring them in, get more stable government, and push their agenda, which BJP are already good at doing, at breaking other political parties, bringing them into their own fold, and then carrying on fulfilling their agenda. So I think Muslims are caught up in a situation like, when a rabbit is caught in the headlights on the road. So it's the same situation for Muslims. When these people will start going to other political parties and supporting BJP, they will see that, look, our efforts have gone into waste, and we're not going to get anything. We will be again. Muslims have done very short-term planning, and they have not even planned properly, and they are not ready for the big battle basically at the moment.
Go
They'll
ahead,
be caught
Muhammad.
in the things.
You're bringing a lot of things, Sheikh. I'm taking notes as you say, because there's a lot of things we need to discuss. Okay, what does that mean, the short-term planning, and what should be the long-term planning for the Muslims? But before that, go ahead, Abu Abdullah. I saw you raise your finger twice. Go ahead.
Yeah. So, just for your audience, brother, the Muslim audience, the global Muslim audience, which might not be so conversant with the nitty-gritties of internal Indian politics, just wanted to paint the larger picture so that they understand the bigger picture of where the Muslims in India sit and see with their actions in that framework. So in India, we have two major political parties: the Congress, which basically represents the secular and the liberal wing, and the BJP, which is the right wing. You can think of them as the right wing of India. Now, BJP, traditionally Congress has been in power, and Muslims have always supported Congress because of an understanding that Congress will be wedded to secular ideals, and Muslims see the secular Indian state as like a shield to protect them from discrimination and their rights. BJP, on the other hand, comes from uh, ideological background from its parent organization called RSS.
Mm, mm,
Now, RSS was basically a movement set up by the Hindus 80 years ago, and their agenda was always to imagine India as a Hindu nation, a Hindu Rashtra, right? So now BJP is the political wing of that movement, right? Now they their long term agenda is to convert India into a Hindu Rashtra because they don't agree with India being a secular state. So India should represent the Hindus rather than because Hindus are the majority, right? Now, obviously, this has always scared the Muslims because for them, Hindu Rashtra means that they will be the second class citizens. So the Muslims have always calculated their electoral actions from the perspective of how can we stop and prevent BJP from coming to power. That's their bigger calculation, the biggest calculation, right? Uh, to make this happen, they will do strategic voting. They'll figure out, and this is the larger narrative among the Muslims in India, from the ulema to the common person, that we have to do everything to stop BJP from coming to power because then we will be second-class citizens because India will be a Hindu Rashtra, right? And there's a fair amount of scaremongering that the liberals do because they want to scare the Muslims to vote for them because traditionally liberals have been in the power in India. They lost the power to BJP recently, 10 to 15 years ago. Otherwise, they had always been in power. So, Indians, Muslims vote purely from the perspective of like for them coming to power of BJP is like existential crisis, right? Which trumps every other consideration they might have in terms of voting. So, yeah, this is the larger picture within which Muslims in India exist, and their political activism is revolves around.
So, I mean, those are the limited points. But Sheikh, should the Muslims be scared? I mean, look, let me play devil's advocate here for a second. But let's say, what should the Muslims in India do? I mean, if you look at the politics, if you look at, I mean, BJP is openly an open enemy. It's saying that, look, we're going to, you hear slogans like Khabristan, ya Pakistan, I mean, you're looking at the whole CAA bill that was going on. I don't know if it will be how far they're going to go with this. And so, what is the future of the Muslims in India, Sheikh? I mean, brothers, they're going to have to play this secular game. Unfortunately, is this? Am I right in this, or saying, okay, how do we look at this, Sheikh? I mean, where do they go?
I mean,
Yeah, so
I would like to.
go ahead.
Okay. No, go Abdullah, please.
Okay, sorry to cut you off,
Okay.
brother. Yeah, so it's the same positions that Brother Sharad, you might realize that the Muslims in the US might feel sometimes, right? They have to pick between two evils. One, someone they will say, "Hey, you can't vote for Trump because he's your open enemy," and then everyone sees Biden what he's doing, right? So it's like you have to pick from the two evils. This is kind of a same dilemma the Muslims in India also feel. Obviously, the reality is very different for Muslims in India compared to the Muslims in the US or in the West or in the UK, for example. Uh, but I see the same kind of dilemma that on one side you have what I call the Congress Party, which is the slow poison, right, which carries the dagger in their back and presents their friendly Muslim face, and on the other side BJP is like the open enemy, right, and it doesn't hide its enmity towards Muslim. So obviously, you can understand from the Muslim point of view, it's very easy to get scared by the enemy which is right in front of you, right? And this is the whole dilemma that Muslims always face. Uh, that you want to stop the enemy that's clearly visible to you, which is the RSS and in the BJP. Uh, in terms of what they can do, uh, this is a bigger discussion. Maybe Brother Abu Muhammad can initiate, and then I can pitch into the discussion. Abu Muhammad, go ahead. This is your favorite topic.
Yeah, Ajazak. No, as brother said about the secular game the Muslims have to play, what else they have. I mean, Muslims, last 70, 75 years have been playing this game, isn't it?
Mm.
So take a stock of what they have achieved. They have become weaker and weaker after every elections. Look, we were in 60s and 70s or 90s. Post 90s, we can see our decline going much faster than how it was before that. So post partition, we were recovering from the shock of partition. And then a few years went by, and then we were dragged into sing these national anthems, sing this game
Mm.
of uh, you know uh, digest the liberal values that have been injected by Congress for last 65 years. And then comes Mr. Modi and his party in 90s, who dynamically takes up the political realm by throwing the Hindutva agenda into the midst of all politics.
Mm.
And Muslims were in a comfort zone with Congress. Actually, they were put to bed by Congress, and every time an atrocity used to happen or a program used to happen in India, Muslims were put down to bed. Okay, nothing will happen. People will be brought to justice. And we have seen a number of programs in India that took place from Kashmir to say Hyderabad. There were a lot of massacres happened. Muslims were killed, and every time we were like told or given a lollipop that okay, yeah, believe in the system. That person was corrupt. PV Narasimha Rao was corrupt. He allowed the demolition of the masjid, but have trust in the system. And after 25 years having trust in the system, even we lost our masjid, and we were at the mercy of the court, which gave 5 acres of land after demolishing our masjid, and nothing. So Muslims have been playing this game of secularism or democracy. They've been giving carrot treatment at times, and they were given stick treatment at the time. So I think it's high time Muslims in India, and the biggest mistake the Muslims in India did, in my opinion, was they cut all the links with the global ummah that they had previously
Mm.
after partition, or prior to partition. Whatever global links that we had, i.e., we were the leaders. The Muslims in India were the ones who were leading the Khilafat movement actually. So that how strong the Muslims were having political links outside India, even at the time of British, which were almost ruling India for almost 200 years. Even though in the final days, like in 1920s, or say, we were having the strong link with the global ummah, and that there was a threat in the British administration, basically East India Company or the British administration, that forced them to completely abolish. Even though the figurehead of the Ottomans were taken away after Sultan Abdul Hamid was sent into exile and stuff, but still Muslims were holding on to that entity which was looking after the global Muslims. So now the sounds of the revival of the Khilafah and the Khilafat movement were resonating in India, which overtook the freedom movement actually. And Congress and Gandhi have to support that movement to gain popularity, to bring Muslims into their fold. So they joined it. So that's how powerful it was. But after post partition, we lost that touch. We even could not maintain proper link with the Muslims in Pakistan. We were force fed the toxic nationalism among Muslims in India, that we started seeing the Muslims as our enemies. Forget about Muslims living far away from in Egypt or Syria or Turkey. So slowly, by every passing day, our attachment with the global ummah got diminishing at very fast. And today, the Muslims in India have become very nationalistic, and the results are seen, which should not be the case. I think that's the first way of revival for Muslims. They have to bridge that gap, bridge that the bridge that they have burnt long back. They have to revive that bridge of having a global identity and aligning with the global ummah actually. So what happens once the Muslims align with the global ummah, the Muslims of India align with the global ummah, that will send a wave into the establishment. Right, the Muslims are not falling for the national game. They are aligning with the ummah. So now it will be difficult for us to contain them or curtail them. They are becoming a force to reckon, even though they might be in minority in India, but they are majority outside of India. So that will definitely have some effect in the in the local policy, local politics of India, and they should abstain from this participation in the secular democracy.
But let me ask you.
They,
Look, Sheikh. Look, I agree with you. Of course, But the thing is, okay. Let's look at the reality. I mean, who came to support anybody in Gaza? I mean, let's say, Gaza, unless, of course, there's Khilafah. I understand that, but Gaza was linked to Egypt, was linked to Qatar, was linked to Saudi, was linked to Turkey, was linked to. But what? I mean, who came for the Muslims of Gaza? Not one bullet.
nobody.
So are we? So now, let's say if you're telling me that, okay, well, we need to create political links. Fine, I agree. I mean, we cannot live in isolated situation. That I agree to. But the thing is, Muslims of India. I mean, if no one's coming to protect Masjid al-Aqsa, I mean, who in the world will care for the Muslims of India?
No. My point was not that. My point was not for getting the protection from the Muslim Ummah. My point was to reviving the links that we have broken and isolated ourselves and boxed ourselves into the Indian side.
No, but that's
My point was way beyond.
that would mean establishing of the Khilafah. That's the only way I can see that happening. Or do you mean something else?
I mean, you can put it that way. That's the end goal. That's the end goal.
That's the end goal.
That's
but
the
see,
end
look,
goal.
look, Sheikh,
But pass through the field to go to the goal post, isn't it?
say that again. I'm sorry.
You have to. I said to reach to the goal post, you have to pass through the midfield. You have to go through the field, isn't
Understood.
it?
So
You cannot just.
So what does that mean?
So
Sheikh?
when-
Yeah. What does that mean? Creating
Okay,
political links means what?
I mean, creating political links. In the sense when some, like for an example, Syria happened, and did we hear anything in India? Did we hear anything in India for last 10, 12 years? Nothing
No.
much. The Muslims
Right.
are concerned about them, and they think their issues are only the issues. The rest of the world, they don't have any issues. Whereas the hadith of the Rasul Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam says, a believer with other believer, you're like one body, just as a lumma. We are one body, basically. So even we can at least come onto the streets, and we can at least show our frustration, show our support, i.e., in the sense what's happening, frustration against the oppression and support for our Muslim brothers. We might not be in a position to do physically by going there or something, but at least we can create awareness among the people that what's happening with our Muslim brothers and sisters in Syria, in Palestine, in Rohingyas or in Uyghur. How many people know about Uyghurs? None. Nobody cares about Uyghurs.
But okay, go ahead, continue, Sheikh. The thing what I'm asking is that, sure, no, I agree with this, but brother Abu Abdullah, is this the ignorance that prevails within the Muslims in India? That what is it, Sheikh, that you don't see? For instance, the Muslims in the US here, and then Britain, you're there sitting in London. The Muslims came out on the streets supporting Gaza, supporting Uyghur Muslims, supporting Syria, supporting the right for people to stand up against oppression. But what's not there, Sheikh, is the Indian, the government, the role of Indian government in suppressing and oppressing the free expression in so-called democracy. What is it that the Muslims of India lack when you have 300 million? That's not a small number, Sheikh.
Yeah. Uh, I think a lot of the sentiments that I share with what Brother Abu Muhammad said. So let me put it this way. It reminds me of the verse in the Quran where Allah Subhanahu wa Taala says, which is Surah 13, verse 11, that Allah Subhanahu wa Taala doesn't change the condition of a people until they change what is within themselves. Right. So the short answer is the change cannot happen tomorrow. Nothing we can discuss here today that Muslims can do, and the things will change tomorrow.
Mm.
Right? It is a long journey, uh, and the journey starts from the thought process itself, right?
Mm.
And the direction uh, they take, right? As Brother Abu Muhammad said. Uh, uh, let me remind
Mm.
the uh, history of Muslims in India. They ruled the country for 800 years, right? They were in a minority. They were never in a majority,
Mm.
right?
Mm. I
No
totally
one,
agree.
no one today remembers how was it possible. What are the lessons to take from that,
Mm.
right? Because why is it happening? Because they have limited their thinking in the very secular and nationalistic framework, right? And the power is limited. Thinking about power in terms of uh, electoral politics. Obviously, when you think in terms of electoral politics, right, you will never see light at the end of the tunnel because you're a minority. You'll never have that influence in the political process because of your numbers, right? So this is the first thing that the revival has to happen in terms of thought itself and the direction of the thought they are facing towards. Uh, Second point which I want to mention is around this revival always happens through the leadership of the Muslims, right? It cannot, but just tomorrow that the masses of Muslims in India they'll just change their ideas and thoughts and they come out on the road with a new idea. It's not going to happen like this, right? The leadership, one of the biggest problems of Muslims in India has been the Muslim leadership, right? Which was basically cultured by the Congress
Mm.
to in the very secular and liberal frame of mind. Even the Islamic scholars of the time, like Mullah Abul Kalam Azad, right, they were ultimately willing to limit their thinking and their policies and actions within the confines of national secular democratic ideals, right? This is what the state of Muslim scholars in the Congress. So leadership is what takes people ahead, right? So there's a direct need for a leadership to develop in India, which takes Islam as a way of life seriously. It takes Islam as an ideology, right? It it comes out of that mindset of being a minority.
Mm.
300 million Muslims, they are fond of calling themselves a minority, which is such a shame, right?
That's a
But if
that's
you
a
think
that's a
in terms of
population
your
of countries, Sheikh.
yeah, yeah. But if you limit your thinking in terms of the nation state boundary, right,
Mm.
then you are a minority, right? But if you expand your thinking in terms of you are part of a larger ummah, then you are not a minority. You are a 2 billion strong ummah, right? So so these are the boundaries of thinking the Muslims need to open, and this has to be happening from the leadership of Muslims. It's not going to happen from the masses first, right? But because masses follow the leadership, right? And traditionally, the leadership of Muslims in India has been secular. They see their existence in the existence of a secular nation, uh, and they have been politically wedded to Congress, and they have not been able to think beyond it. Now, the third point I want to make is there's a big role that Indian Muslims can play in this revival who are outside of India. I can understand a Muslim in India will would not be able to sustain the onslaught of the state, right? If they just forget about projecting Islamic leadership, right? I mean, the reality is in India is that if you post a Islamic WhatsApp status update on your status WhatsApp, right? You get jailed actually. There are instances that the state will come after you. So here, the Muslims of India, which are outside the country, right, but they are connected, they can play a big role in advocating their cause, in highlighting their issues, right? Especially who are living in the Gulf, right? They can start to connect the situation of Muslims in India to the wider global audience, and just like we have connected the Muslims to the plight of the Palestinians, right? So anything that happens to the Palestinians, the global ummah is alert and it protests. I know it doesn't do anything, can't do anything beyond it, but at least it's connected to the Muslims of Palestine, right? But anything that happens to Muslims in India, I don't think the Muslims globally pay any attention, except for if it becomes a headline news somewhere in terms of lynching and what's going on once in a while. So yeah, I mean, as I said, local leadership has to appear within. It's easier said than done, and then a big role has to be played by the expat Muslims from India who are settled in the West, who have much more freedoms to talk about those issues, and they can use this privilege, they can use these freedoms to highlight their issues, to highlight their solutions, to connect them to the larger ummah around the world, and that's the only way I see. It's not going to happen tomorrow. We all know the ultimate solution is the Khilafah, but obviously the Khilafah is not coming tomorrow on 24 hours. Obviously, Allah Ta'ala knows better. He can make anything what possible that's in its control. But this is how I see Sheikh.
Sheikh, go ahead, Muhammad, go ahead.
Yeah, I have a small comment to make on that link between the global ummah. If you remember, a few months back, maybe almost a year back, there was one prominent BJP spokesperson who faintly insulted Rasul Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. Not like how in West, but very faintly she said something about Rasul Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam in a not nice way, which constituted to blasphemy, and that picked up. She mentioned something in that television interview or something. She was having a go with somebody else, and then she mentioned something, and that somebody picked it up, and then it was raised among the Muslims in India first. Then it was through the social media, Twitter, and all those avenues. It was taken to the Middle East. As soon as it reached Middle East, it became a big issue. So the Ummah picked up over there. So they started boycotting Indian products. So they have to suspend her from BJP. The BJP have to answer this, and within 3 days, Modi was in majority. It was like year and a half back or so. He was even though that his government is in majority, but he has to come and say these things. So you have to make strategic relationships. You have to hit strategically where it hurts them, basically. So that's the thing which the Muslims and the vice versa. Muslims have to do the same for other people in India as well. So it's not just one-way street. We will have less responsibility, but at least raising the voice, initiating that touch which we have, cut off for long back. And the situation is so dire with Muslims in India. I'll tell you, we don't even raise point. We don't even raise voice for atrocities happening to Kashmir. That's the situation. That's the situation for Muslims in India. Muslims should shed that, scaremongering or being so much under pressure. They have to say the truth, what it is. They have to say yes, whatever you're doing wrong for Kashmir brothers and sisters, what you're doing is wrong, and what you've been doing for decades is wrong. We have abandoned Kashmir, so it's high time. We have to revive those links. We have to accept our mistakes that we have done with our brothers and sisters, not only in India, outside India as well. So I think that's a high
So
time.
is that
We have
because
to
of
take.
nationalism? Because I
Yes.
feel that even the US, especially when new Muslims they come from India, and the discussions that we have with them, they've lived a very isolated life as far as understanding what happens across the world. They have no clue why they should stand up for Muslims of Gaza. Let's say they don't know why they should stand up for Muslims of Syria. What's happening in Syria or in Iraq or in Afghanistan or Sheikh, is this nationalism or is this just what is it, Sheikh? I mean, you are living in a world. There is a world. Whether let's say even if it's nationalism, but you live in you. I mean, look, you have a population that say, for instance, I mean, they're when it comes to their books of just their engineering or their medicine or whatever, they'll know every page and every when it comes to their education. But when it comes to understanding the plight of the Muslims, they by design keep themselves away from it.
Yeah, I mean, as Abu Abdullah mentioned it correctly, that we have been living under secular system for decades. So that is the reason that that has taken effect. for over the
Sheikh, we live
generations.
in a secular,
And I,
secular. I mean, you're not living in Islamic Sharia in Britain, in
I know,
London. I'm not living in Sharia in Chicago here, right? I mean, so why
but
such low level of, yani, why such, yani, keeping away ourselves from awareness of what's happening to us, Sheikh?
in
So
India, as Abdullah that the political awareness is very much local and confined to their own states or own regions. Basically, it's not beyond that. For them, only the issue. Their political awareness is just okay. Elections every 5 years. Keep these forces out of the out of power. Do this. Okay, we have few Muslim representatives that they are happy with that. So they are what is serving my interest. What they are purely pragmatic. They're not
Mm.
concerned about what's happening. Even the Muslims in Telangana are not concerned what's happening in UP and other places. As long as they think I am okay, my interests are safeguarded. I'm having a peaceful and secure life. That's fine. I don't mind. I don't need to rock the boat. That's the mentality
Right, right,
Muslims in
right.
India have.
I mean, especially Muslims of Hyderabad. I mean, when so much going on in UP, nobody does. There's not even nobody moves
Yeah,
even a rock or a stone.
correct. So I think, and plus
so let
also as the onus lies on the scholars as well, the
Mm.
ulama that we look upon to. Where is the ummah goes every Friday to the khutbah to listen to the khutbah. Even they don't say these things. Now they are promoting heavily all these nationalistic rituals in masajids. They are promoting all nationalistic ideas. So where will the ummah get the deen from? The deen is like you are like a one body. If they hear this in the khutbah, then they will find that analogy. They will see, okay, how can I help? How can I do? For them,
Mm.
the help is maximum they do is put your pocket in the hand, take a 10 pound, 10, 100 rupees note or 500 rupees note, put in the charity box for Kashmir or for Palestine or for Iraq or something, and nothing beyond that. And they just happy that, oh, okay, I have done morally, I've done something which I can do and I've done.
Go ahead, Abu Abdullah. You were saying so.
Yeah, there are a lot of points that Brother Abu Muhammad had made. I just want to again take a step back and just describe how has this situation developed. Right, I have lived among Muslims in many parts of the world, including West and the East, and I don't feel it as a sense of pride to conclude that the Muslims of India I have found are the most secularized among the global ummah that I have
Mm.
come across. Maybe I have not come across every one of them, but they are deeply secularized. And one of the reasons is that remember after partition, right, the elite Muslims, right, they all moved to Pakistan. Uh, uh, Now the Muslims that were left in India were the ones basically who couldn't go to. Basically, they wanted to, but they couldn't go because of a lot of other reasons. So the intellectual development of Muslims in India started at a very low base, right? Basically, the masses that were left behind, and because of the circumstances at the time of partition and the horrible things that happened, right? The Muslims of India decided to basically make a pact, uh, and and their pact, as they saw from their perspective, was that their priority should be to ensure that the secular India lives and survives. That was, as I said earlier, that was their existential issue, right? And they got cultured, and their thought process developed from purely from that perspective. Even with ulema, they were deeply secularized. I mean, I'll tell you one example. So there's one political party that claim to represent Muslims in India is called AIMM. You must be knowing
Oh, of course. Yeah.
OS, the politician,
Awasi.
brother
Mm.
Owaisi from Hyderabad,
Mm.
right? Who has this, and his idea is basically to create a political party with a Muslim identity. Okay,
Mm.
uh, whenever he is questioned on Kashmir, for example, right? Uh, he toes the government line and he said this is the internal issue of India, right? He was actually invited to TV debate in Pakistan, right? And obviously in Pakistan he was questioned on his alliances because they expected him to basically speak on the behalf of Kashmiris, and he actually berated the Pakistanis in that TV program, right? And presented the purely nationalistic outlook that you don't have to worry about us in India. Kashmir is our internal issue. We will take care of this. The constitution can take care of this. So this is the state of affairs for a party which claims to represent the Muslim identity, and the politicians which actually converses and promotes himself as a Muslim politician and claims to represent Islam. So now you can imagine the intellectual state of the Ummah if the politicians are represented like this, right? So uh, it's a long story. It's a sad story. And as Brother Abu Muhammad mentioned, ulama are the people who guide the Muslims everywhere. And and in India, um, the ulama just focus on making sure that the secular state survives, and somehow they have to stop the BJP from coming to power. And this is what all they think about. Um, and this is the saddest state of affairs, but this is what it is.
So Sheikh is so I mean, is the politics of India, as far as the Muslims are concerned, seems to be constantly an existential politics. We just have we don't do this now, we may not exist. We don't do this now, we may not exist.
Yeah.
So it always comes down to a constant. They have to take extreme steps because it's existential issue.
Yeah.
Sheikh, is this in look? If you look at Israel, for instance, it's always an existential issue. Any move that it makes it an extreme because it may not exist the next day. And they understand that, so they have to just either crush it all or there's no midpoint. And Israel claims to be a democracy and obviously is doing what it's doing to the Muslims there. India is the same way. But Sheikh, what is the existential threat of the Muslims in India? What is it that obviously the scare tactics and all this, but can really 300 million Muslims of India be wiped out? Is this? What is it that they worry about, Sheikh? Their existence in India.
I think you have hit the what do you call hit the nail on the head when you ask this question. Because this question has never really been seriously challenged. It is assumed that BJP is an existential crisis for Muslims, but no one has seriously challenged it, right? And it has a history. So when I said the BJP's ideological parent, which is the RSS, right? They had their roots in the fascist movement in Europe, right? And they saw the example of Hitler and Germany, how to purge the Jews, and their whole agenda was to repeat the same examples with the Muslims in India when the party was established 8 years ago. Right? They saw that model to repeat in India. That was and it is in their literatures where they seem to praise Hitler and how he dealt with Jews, and similarly we had to deal with the Muslims in India. Now that created a fear psychosis, to be honest, that this is like we will face the same things as what Jews faced when Hitler came to power, right? But the reality is we are now living in a different world arena compared to what was there when Hitler did what he did, right? As you said, there are 300 million Muslims in India. It's not a small number, right? The threat, and this is my opinion, the threat has been overplayed because it serves a political purpose. It serves a political purpose to keep liberals in power, to keep the secular parties in power, especially the Congress in power. Because if they don't blow up this threat, the Muslims are not going to vote for them en masse. Right? And Muslims are known to vote for them en masse up till now. Right? But as I said, no one has seriously challenged this assumption that, for example, BJP has been power in 10 years. Right? We know it has means there have been a news of lynching and all. But if we compare objectively, the number of riots that happened in Congress were far more than the number of riots that happened in BJP. And this is what even BJP claims, right? That we have killed less Muslims in our rule compared to what Congress did, right? Under their rule of 60 years. By one estimate, I was looking at some data, there were 20,000 anti-Muslim riots under Congress rule.
Right. For God's sake, Ayodhya and Babri Masjid was destroyed under their rule.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes.
And the only right you can remember under BJP and the BJP rule was the Gujarat riots. I'm not trying to downplay
No, no, no. I
BJP. As I
understand. I'm
said,
just saying. Yeah, yeah, right.
they are they are the open enemy, and but we had to make an assessment who has done the maximum damage, right? And where does this lie? Does it lie in the political party, or does it lie in the system itself, which is inherently anti-Muslim? Because it is designed to keep Muslims out of power. Remember, it's coming from a history of Muslim being in power in India for 800 years,
Mm,
and it was designed to make sure that this never happens in future, right?
mm, mm,
Uh,
mm,
so no matter which party is in power, Congress or BJP, this is the state policy, right? Congress is the correct side of it. BJP is the stick side of it. Coming back to your point, exact point. As I said, this is overplayed, right? About the threat to Muslims. It's not possible to carry out the same task that Hitler managed to do with 300 million Muslims in a globally connected world like this, right? Uh, Even the Western power would allow this to happen because they want a stable country. They want a stable India. From the Western perspective, they want to make sure that India is stable and so that it can fulfill its own agenda for within the geopolitical context in Asia Pacific. Uh, but yeah, I mean, I think I would urge, especially the Muslims intellectuals in India, to reevaluate this threat perception that they always seem to take as the basis for anything to think beyond. Right? They always start from the basis of thinking this is an existential crisis, and then the next section what should it should be to take tomorrow.
Brother Abu Abdullah, Abu Muhammad, we have about 10 minutes, maybe less actually. There was a very good point was made. That was that, look, if you're going to empower the Muslims of India, let's say, we have to start with the revival of thought. Uh, however long it takes, could take 50 years, 100 years, it could take tomorrow. There's a lot can happen. But what does that mean, Sheikh? Revival of thought for the Muslims in India. What does that mean? What does that look like?
All right. I think that's the crux of the argument or the questions. It's a very realistic one. It will take a time. It will be. I might sound a bit. It's a very utopian idea. It might sound from my side or my opinion, but I have been holding this opinion for a long time, that Muslims in India, as I said, I mentioned my first point was to bridge the gap with the global ummah. That's the first point. That they have to continuously be doing that. Second, they have to abstain from this secular democracy. There is no good in secular democracy for Muslims. I'm coming from pure theological point. We are not allowed to do that. We are not supposed to take part in that, and we have Islamic ideology with us, and we have got a tradition of 1300 years of history with us, and we can definitely revive those traditions and cultures that Islam has given us. So we have to hold on to Islam, holding on to secular democracy for our hope or safeguarding our lives and security, which I mean, I'm sorry to say, but democracy is not even protecting the rights of the people in the western lands.
Right.
What hope does Muslims have in a place like India or somewhere else? So we should denounce the secular ideas. We should hold on to Islamic ideas, and we should look for the Islamic solutions. Yes, I know India is not a place where the revival can take place, but Muslims of India can definitely play a big part in the revival, in the global scheme of things. So that's what my take home message for Muslims in India will be. So I think they have to. I mean, yes, there might be different ways and things to do it, but that's the ultimate steps you have to take. No matter you do it today, no matter you do it after 10 or 15 years or 20 years. But for an example, for an example, my question would be, if the Khilafah is established somewhere in Muslim lands, what would the Muslims of India do then? What would be their course of action? Will they
Mm,
go against it? Will they support it? So they have to ask this question to themselves: what will be our generations doing when the Khilafah at some point of time will be established, which will going to be established as the Rasul Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam saying is there. We know about the return. So it will come. So what are we going to leave our children with? What message are we going to give them? So we have to prepare them for that. So the preparation is denouncing of the secular values or secular ideology, and embracing Islamic ideology, not only in spiritual matters, but but as a way in comprehensively Islamic way of life they have to adopt. Yes, we might have some short-term hiccups. We might not get benefits. We might lose on something, but that's the price we pay for Jannah. That's the price. That's the little price we have to aspire, and we have to pay to get into Jannah, isn't it? So that's the thing we have to do as Muslims. That's my opinion. People can disagree, but that's what I feel.
Go ahead, Brother Abu Abdullah.
Yeah, Jazakallah khair. So I just want to summarize some basic points in terms of what we need to do. Uh, First of all, we all know there's a global revival of Islam happening across the world, and we all know this global revival has end destination. And there's a global political project which is the establishment or the re-establishment of the Khilafah in the Muslim world. Okay, uh, Muslims of India, by the sheer numbers, have a big role to play, right? In that project, uh, and one of the biggest role can be just because of their numbers. They can add to this call. They can build the help. They can help build the public opinion for this reestablishment in the Muslim world. They can the ulama can revive this idea, start to revive this idea among the Muslims, right? They start to connect themselves with this vision and with this political project. Uh, as Abu Muhammad said, the Khilafah is not coming in India because the reality that Muslims in India are in, but it's definitely coming in the Muslim world, right? We need to be preparing ourselves to obviously to share with the spoils of the rewards that we are going to get for the work that we are going to do, right? And as Brother Muhammad said, there will be hiccups, there will be pressures, there will be struggles, right? But this is all part of the price that we all pay, right, for victory. It doesn't come without sacrifice, without giving up something. Uh, so yeah, and there there are a lot of things that the Muslims in India can do in terms of the moment they change their direction of thinking, a lot of new windows open up, a lot of new ideas start to come up. India itself is in a big crisis. We haven't discussed the reasons behind BJP's bad performance in detail, but India is going through its own crisis after it adopted capitalism 20 years ago, right? Uh, there's a huge wealth gap crisis growing in India. There's a huge unemployment crisis. There's India is
Right.
one of the
Yeah.
most unequal societies in the world, right? India has its own issues, which is affecting not only Muslims but other 1 billion non-Muslims in India, right? Muslims in India have a role to play in terms of presenting the solution. That look, you have tried socialism, it failed. You have tried capitalism, it failed. Here is what the Islamic solution looks like. It can be done in a purely political and ideological way, right? You can connect to a lot of masses in India, which are not so hostile to the message of Islam, right? There are weaker sections of the society. There are the list. There are the people who have been oppressed by the Indian state as much as they have oppressed the Muslims, right? So there's a big audience in non-Muslim audience in India to be connected to in terms of presenting solutions to the problems they face, right? And the problems that India face are pretty dire. There are a lot of data I was looking at. 30% of India doesn't have even access to sanitation, right? 30% of Indian population. India is the most unequal society in the world, and the wealth gap is typical of any capitalist nation. Is dramatically increased after, especially after the COVID. Corruption, right? Social tensions, caste tensions. There are regional conflicts going on in, for example, the state of Manipur. So Muslims have a solution, have a vision, have a solutions, and they have to start to connecting with the people in India, but using Islam as the framework, not in the old tried and failed framework of liberal democracy or secularism or whatever it entails. So yes, locally they have to represent Islam, and then globally they have to get connected to the revival of the Islamic project and to aid to its cause. It's definitely going to come in the Muslim world, and we have to become a part of that effort in terms of helping build the public opinion for it.
Sheikh, last question. That's the 2 minutes. With all of the families that are ruling India now, I mean, you have the Ambanis, the Tata Birla, and all of these that are there. I mean, are they really in? I mean, so how do they? Okay, let me put it this way. I mean, for even Indian capitalism to work, because I think there's Indian capitalism, there's Chinese capitalism, there's a whole, capitalism seems to have its own madahib. How does something for those liberal Muslims? Whenever we talk about this stuff, they say, "Oh, which madhab is going to come together?" Let me put it for them here. But the elite of India, what madhab of capitalism are they happy with? Because do they want a Hindu Rashtra? Can capitalism survive in Hindu Rashtra, or it needs a liberal, open-minded markets so it can attract even wealth for themselves? I mean, anyone can take this.
This has too many questions enrolled into one, and it has to be the questions have to be unpacked first. Let me paint the larger picture as I usually do. As I said, India, when it became independent and achieved independence from the Britishers, right? Their elites were infatuated with liberalism and socialism, right? That was the political model and economic model that they built, right? 60 years of that experiment with socialism, it failed. Then USSR collapsed. The Indian elites made a U-turn, and they saw their future in aligning with capitalism, and that's why they turned to US, right? Now, I would say this is typical of a idol worshipping society, which will always bow to whoever is in power, basically worshipping the rising sun, right? So now the tendency is to now worship the rising sun, which is the US, right? And this is how the Indian elites think. Even if they are copying a model from outside of India, from socialism to capitalism, they do a very poor job of copying it, because it is not coming from within them. They are just copying it, right? Now, suddenly, every elite in India wants to come with the capitalist model, which is in the US. They are infatuated with that, right? The urban elite, especially, for them, progress is malls and whatever the urban elites are quite influenced by, right? So they have their own now developed their very corrupted model of capitalism, where just 2 or 3 business families, Adanis and Ambanis, and maybe a couple of them, they have grabbed all the positions. I would say the influence, right? And so when they implemented socialism, it was never a proper implementation, because, as I said, it was just copying and pasting. And now they're implementing capitalism, and it's a disaster, because even they're not doing a good job with it. And even the capitalists are not happy, right? And when you look at the capitalist commentary coming from the Western commentators, they criticize Indian capitalism because of this, that it's not capitalism, it's like oligarchy. There were two, the BJP relies on 2 main donors, who I would call Adani and Ambani, to fund them, and the majority of the benefits of the state as going to these 2 business entities. India can look forward to reflect and look forward to what actually made them great, right? Socialism didn't make them great. Capitalism made them far worse. What made them great in the past was Islam.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah,
800 years. It's a fact, and India was the largest economy in the world under the Mughals. 25% of the global GDP was coming from India under the Mughals, right? that there must be something that people of India need to look back into. What is it about Islam which provided the social stability, right, which is not there right now, which provided that economic stability, and which provide and made them the superpower that it was 300 years ago. Now India is just a failed third world developing nation, aspiring to be a developed nation, riding on the shoulders of America, and previously trying to ride on the shoulders of USSR.
Any final thoughts, Brother Muhammad, on this issue? I mean, I mean, what is he going to do? Follow Chinese model? I mean, for that, they don't have the political class for that, do they? Or I mean, China has a political party. I mean, they were able to transform the CCP into whatever it is today in order to kind of, take in capitalism. Can India do that, Sheikh, in that way? I mean, was BJP trying to be the CCP of India?
They were trying to be the CCP of India, but they couldn't. We can see that in the last few years. Even though Adani and Ambani, they align with BJP, but recently, just before elections, even Modi had criticized them heavily. So there is some rift. There is some rift within that camp. Within that camp of the capitalist and the politicians, there is some rift. You never know what it might be. It will come in the days to come. And Rahul Gandhi is creating a problem in between them. He is playing his politics. He is going after them on both sides. So yes, Indian capitalists try to copy the American model, but with the sort of corruption, with the sort of issues that are in India, it's quite not it's quite very difficult for them to exactly emulate what's happening in America. So they have to find their ways out, and then and justify the means come into play, and then the politicians have to be satisfied, and there are the conditions are not the same for these capitalists in India to play the role of capitalists in America. So the reality is completely bit different. The conditions are different. The thing is, there are like these capitalists. They have relationship with Congress 60 years. BJP has come. They have their old relationship, so they have to maintain those relationships as well. And you never know, people tomorrow might bring these people to power. You never know. So they have to do that, keep on doing that balancing off act between two political parties and stuff like that. So they are not like even CCP or even like the American capitalists. They are caught up in between. So, and that's the reason we see statements come from these capitalists. Sometimes they are purely concerned about their own benefits and businesses, but I think in the long run that will be a big problem for India in the days to come. I think India is coming to that point, as we mentioned about some of the things. People are, unemployment is high, so a lot of things are there. People are not just because there is a wave going on based on religion, the people are a bit quiet, but unemployment is very high, the crime rate is very high, the women's safety is an
Right.
issue in India.
The rape capital
So
of the
these
world,
are
for
all,
God's sakes. Yeah.
yeah. So
Yeah,
and the world is looking at, there will come a boiling point where things will go out of hand pretty soon.
Yeah,
So
I mean, I
these
think
are there are these.
I mean, we could talk about the farmers and what's happening in that area. That's a whole different ballgame. Seems like that was already coming to a boiling point. I mean,
Correct.
the capital was, for God's sakes, attacked, and I think the Lal. I remember it was all a situation going on. That's a lot, and we may have to have again, even for this, a part two for what's happening in the internal politics of India, and I think it'll be an interesting part two for this, inshallah. But Sheikh, because now we've reached an hour 21 or 22 minutes, I don't want to go any further. But Jazakumullah khairan for coming and discussing these issues. I think there's a lot to learn for the Muslims in what's happening in general all over. I mean, I don't know what's coming when Trump comes to power. You have a situation that the Muslims really have to look into, where you have Trump in the US, you have Modi in India, you have Putin in Russia, you have so at the end, the Muslims are being grinded in this mess, and we are the only ones without a cause, it seems, and without a cause in the sense that we have forgotten our cause, our objective, and so now every nation, every Tom, Dick and Harry is coming and giving us a cause. and then we just come out to be some type of, it seems like food for the hungry. Jazakumullah khairan, brothers. Inshallah, we'll have this discussion again for your time and for your participation. Jazakumullah khairan. And brothers and sisters, for rest of you, as
Barakallah feek.
this discussion will be shown, we are in the days of Eid. Eid Mubarak to all of you and your families. And really make dua, brothers and sisters, that this ummah unites. One of the things that I want to do say before we end this, as you know, we are passing through the Hajj times. A lot of politicians from across the world are going to Hajj. That includes Sisi and even it seems like Sirajuddin Haqqani and many others are going to Hajj and discussing. Only Allah knows what will happen now, what's in the plans for after Gaza and what happens to Gaza also. That includes the Muslims of India. That can include the Muslims of Bosnia. Bosnia is in a very heated tension situation right now. And everywhere Muslims are, while Gaza is still taking place, many Muslims are thinking, what's next? Who's next on the plan? May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protect this ummah and unite this ummah and bring us people who will rule us by the deen of Allah Azza wa Jal and with justice. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh.
Ameen.
Wa alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
لن يطول الظلام ديننا لن يضام نحن جيل الهمام نحن فينا عمر لا 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 لن يطول الظلام ديننا لن يضام نحن جيل الهمام نحن فينا عمر صبح بدا نور ظهر نجم وشمس وقمر ألقى على الدنيا الدرر هذا عمر هذا عمر كل البرايا تنتظر أيامه البيض الغرر كي تستفيد من العبر هذا عمر هذا عمر لا لن تدوم الجراح بل سيأتي الصباح نحن أهل الكفاح نحن فينا عمر لا لا لن تدوم الجراح بل سيأتي الصباح نحن